Act 1, Scene 1. Set is minimal. A white gate is placed upstage left, a garden is downstage left, and a narrow white bench is set downstage right. Lights up on Mr. Thomas, who has bent over his garden in his backyard at work. Natalie enters through the gate and looks at him for a moment before walking to the bench and sitting down, watching him closely, biting her lip. He senses her presence.
You know you always bite your lip when you've got something to say.
You forgot to water that azalea.
Mr. Thomas looks over at her and wipes his forehead, shaking his head as he ignores her comment.
You know I don't like you in my garden. Out.
Can I help?
Help. You've never wanted to help before, and no, I don't need any.
I've just never asked. Besides, everyone needs help.
Why would I need help?
You're all by yourself. You need someone to help you, someone younger, sharper, and more adept.
Adept? What on earth makes you think I'm not adept? That's a big word for a little girl.
I'm 9. Besides, Mother told me I should come over and help you.
Natalie, is your father home?
He was pulling into the driveway when Mother told me to come over.
Well, you can go back to your mother and tell her that I don't need anyone's help.
Mother says you should never be afraid to ask someone for help.
Natalie gets up off the bench and walks over, reaching toward the forgotten azalea.
No, don't touch that. You don't know how to handle flowers.
Sure I do. Mother used to have a garden. We had all kinds of things in it, orchids and marigolds and asters and violets. We grew vegetables too, carrots and peas and tomatoes. You should plant some vegetables, Mr. Thomas. Then you can make yourself a good stew. I can show you how to care for them.
That won't be necessary. Now, please, go home, child.
Well, I'm not leaving, so at least let me help you with something.
What did I tell you?
That you don't need any help. And I heard you, but I also know that you need some help with this garden and you're just too stubborn to ask for it.
Mr. Thomas looks at Natalie incredulously for a moment and then sits back and folds his arms. Natalie bends down and grabs the watering can, watering the azalea. Mr. Thomas watches quietly. She places it back on the ground and kneels down on the stage right side of the garden.
There. See? You don't need to be all grumpy about it.
Now, if you had just let me do it on my own...
Please, I was just trying to help.
I told you I do not need any help. Why won't you leave me alone?
I told you. Mother told me to come over.
Well, don't touch the flowers, but I suppose if you do want to help, you could hand me the watering can.
Natalie picks up the watering can and hands it to Mr. Thomas. Then, as she says her next few lines, she crosses to the bench and sits on it, folding her legs under her.
Your orchids are beautiful. My mother loves orchids. She says that every orchid color is a symbol for something different. We used to have all the colors. Orange means boldness and pride, and white means innocence and purity, and the purple ones are usually given as a sign of respect. And the pink ones are for joy and grace. You should plant some green ones. They represent health and nature and life. Oh, look, you have yellow ones. Those are Mother's favorite. That means friendship and new beginnings. Did you know that vanilla is a type of orchid? I'm sorry. I'm talking too much, aren't I? Father says I'm the kind of person that would tell you how to build a clock if you asked what time it is. Isn't that funny? I told him once that I don't know how to build a clock, and he said I could probably figure it out. Hold on, Mom. I'm talking too much again, aren't I?
Yes, it's all right.
Mr. Thomas, you're nicer than the kids at school. They all make fun of me for it.
For talking too much?
Yes. And for having holes in my cheeks.
Holes in your cheeks?
Yes. When I smile, see? When I smile, they laugh. So at school, I don't smile anymore.
They laugh at you for smiling? Then you keep on smiling. If they want to laugh, you let them laugh. People throw rocks at things that shine.
Do you ever smile, Mr. Thomas?
Of course I do. Everybody smiles.
I've never seen you smile.
Well, I used to smile. Quite a lot, actually. But you're right, I haven't smiled in a long time.
Why not?
Maybe you should go back to your mother now.
Is it because of Mrs. Thomas?
Slow music begins to play softly. Natalie stands up at her discovery. Mr. Thomas stands as well as the two of them switch places, each in their own thoughts. Natalie walks to the garden, hundreds of questions flying through her head as Mr. Thomas crosses slowly to the bench, trying to control his temper.
Stop.
Is it because you miss her?
Now you listen to me. No more questions.
Is it because she died?
Please, not now.
What happened to her?
I said no more questions!
Music stops suddenly. Natalie squeezes her eyes shut and covers her ears with a gasp. Mr. Thomas turns to look at her and softens slightly. Music resumes very quietly as the back of the stage changes lighting, showing a young woman in a white lacy dress and a straw hat running across, clutching a suitcase in one hand and holding her hat with the other. He watches the flashback in silence, remembering. Music fades out again very quickly and lighting returns to normal. He walks to the garden and quickly begins watering flowers in a hurry. Natalie recovers and crosses very slowly to the bench, watching and waiting until he slows to a stop.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked. I know I ask too many questions. Father shouts at me when I ask too many questions. I should know better, but I'll go now.
Natalie begins to walk towards the gate.
No. Please. Please stay.
I don't want to cause you any more pain, Mr. Thomas.
No, it's all right. Come. Come here with me.
Natalie and Mr. Thomas sit together on the bench. He thinks for a moment before starting.
Rebecca passed only a few years after Catherine and Daniel were born.
You don't have to tell me.
My Catherine was a lot like you, Natalie. Full of questions and wonder. I think that's why I feel comfortable telling you this. You remind me of her and it feels familiar somehow.
You can tell me as much or as little as you want to. I'll listen.
I would go to church every morning and pray to her, asking her to guide me in raising our children. They were so young then. I was afraid of what the death of a mother would do to them. A mother is such an important role in a young child's life. And now that they have left me, I don't know what to pray for anymore. There isn't anything left. My garden is the only connection to her that I can still rely on. It has kept us together throughout all those dark years, and I could never bear to see it die. She loved her garden more than anything. The violets and the lilac bushes and the chrysanthemums. And how busy and wonderful it was when the butterflies came.
It was her garden?
Yes. She loved it dearly. The orchids were her favorite too, the yellow ones. And now that Rebecca's gone, it seems to be all I think about. I feel like I need the garden. It's all that remains of her. Catherine loved it too, almost as much as her mother did. She loved it when the forget-me-nots would bloom in the spring.
Where is she now?
Don't know. She left one day for the city, and I haven't seen her since. Never calls. Never writes.
What happened?
While Mr. Thomas says his next few lines, the same music begins to play. Blue lighting envelops stage right, creating a flashback. Catherine, the woman from before, enters gracefully from stage right. Young Mr. Thomas enters after her, and she turns and runs to him. Before she can embrace him, music reaches the same strong chord, and she stops cold. He walks backward slowly off stage right as she turns and runs across the stage, suddenly in a rage. She swoops down and grabs a suitcase and then sprints off stage left, holding her hat to her head. The flashback is done, almost like a ballet.
She wanted to become an actress. I told her that was a silly dream. An actor can be making thousands of dollars one minute and then none the next. It's difficult to make a living. She was angry with me, but I couldn't support her in her decision to pursue this as a career. We fought about it for weeks, and then one day she packed her bags and left. She never looked back.
Why don't you call her?
She doesn't want to talk to me.
You don't know that.
I do. If she wanted to talk to me, she would have called me. It's been years. Once my children were gone, I shut everyone else out.
What about your son?
Daniel? He's a teacher in Virginia.
Well, does he ever call?
No. But he does send me a Christmas card and a birthday card every year. Doesn't say much, just signs his name in the bottom corner. But he's never forgotten to send them.
Don't you want to know if you have grandchildren?
No.
Why not?
Because they'll be just like you.
You really should call them, Mr. Thomas. Maybe they would come visit you.
I wouldn't want that.
Why not?
I'm not the best host when others are in my house.
Well, that's okay. Neither are my parents.
Your parents?
Well, they live together, but some days it seems like our house is split in two, and I'm caught in the middle.
You know that your parents don't exactly get along well, huh?
You know?
I hear them arguing sometimes.
Do you think everyone can hear it? They fight a lot at night when Father comes home late. I hear it all. Even when I cover my ears and pull the blankets over my head, sometimes I hear them throwing things. Sometimes it's just arguing. And last night I heard Father talking about leaving for the city. And Mother said she would do a better job raising me on her own anyway.
She told him to leave?
And I don't know if he will or not. And the scary part is I don't know if I want him to leave or not. I wish Father would stay, but if he left, then Mother would be happier, and I could sleep at night instead of listening to them shout at each other. I don't know what I want, and that scares me. And it scares me to be in that house.
A faint sound of glass shattering can be heard. Natalie and Mr. Thomas look toward the sound.
Natalie, your mother didn't tell you to come over here, did she?
Natalie is silent and then slowly shakes her head. It is quiet for a long moment.
Mr. Thomas, we're broken, you and me.
Broken.
Yes, broken. We spend our time in this garden when we need to get away from everything else.
What do you mean?
Well, all you ever do anymore is sit outside and take care of Mrs. Thomas's garden. You use it to hide from everything around you, and I use it to hide too. Well, I hope you don't mind, Mr. Thomas, but some nights when things at home are especially bad, I sneak out the kitchen door and come to your garden. It makes me feel safer. I should have asked you, and I'm sorry.
Is that why my marigolds are looking so good?
I can tell when you forget to water them.
I've been broken for a long time, Natalie. I've been broken for as long as I can remember.
I think everyone has to be a little bit broken in some way. Otherwise, the light can't shine through the cracks. I'd better go. Mother will notice if I'm gone for too long.
Keep your head held high, child. Be all right. It can't rain forever.
I've heard that there is always sunshine at the end of a rainstorm.
It's true. Sometimes even a rainbow. Goodbye, Natalie.
Goodbye, Mr. Thomas.
Natalie closes the gate behind her and runs off stage left. Blackout. Scene 2. Low lighting comes up a few moments later on Mr. Thomas bent over his garden, revealing that it is now the middle of the night. Soft music plays. Mr. Thomas works diligently at his garden in the dark. After a moment, Natalie runs in from stage left in a nightgown, carrying a lantern, her back to Mr. Thomas. She is visibly frightened. She turns and stops cold when she sees him. They stare at each other for a long time. Then, silently, Mr. Thomas bows his head and Natalie walks over and joins him at the garden. He shows her a single flat of yellow orchids. She breathes in, smelling it, and a melancholy look comes over her face, remembering when days were brighter. They begin planting the orchids together in quiet acceptance. Catherine enters from stage right and watches them for a moment before removing her hat, symbolically placing it on Natalie's head. Neither Natalie nor Mr. Thomas acknowledge this, as she is only a memory. The lights go dark once again. Back out.